Hello and welcome to this podcast, this YouTube clip where I dive into some really interesting topics with my sister, who's actually a trained psychologist whose Bachelor is in science, so she has a very inquiring mind. She actually likes to describe herself as a non-practicing counsellor, and that is actually due to some health issues that she's had over the years, and it's this topic that we're going to dive into today because we're going to look at how for me and my health issues and how for her and her health issues, how the two things are quite similar and yet very dissimilar in how we have to respond, how we have to act, and also how people respond to us. So she has had ME, which has been a slow deterioration, and it's looking at the fact that for her recovery, it's about sustaining what she has and not burning the candle too hard and coming to terms with that. Whereas for me, because my accidents are a lot more in a way superficial, so it's about rehab, recovery through pain, just working through your own pain, how people react to how you're traveling through life. There's lots of wonderful gems throughout. As you'll find, my sister is quite sarcastic but has a wonderful sense of humor, is very open, and what you'll also see is, which is a word she uses for herself, grace, and how you like to move through life when you're got quite major life-altering conditions, but you're trying to find a sense of openness, not go to too many dark places, and find the best you can in every single moment. I hope you guys really enjoy this. Please like and subscribe. Please leave some comments about how this affects you, how you've gone through different difficult things, and what you're looking to do in the future. So remember to take care. I hope you enjoy. Let's dive into it.
So what I was looking to do is that podcast series of, I want to call looking behind the curtain of, people either recovering from struggle, still in struggle. And obviously the moment I thought of that, I thought of you, the person who, just
Exhibit A of
exactly. It's just
Exhibit A of it's a long story and not much of it's great.
And so in that respect, it was like we first talked about this was, partly looking at the first of our different things of you've had the side of the story where it doesn't matter what happens, you are staying in the struggle. Like it doesn't matter how much work you do. And also then the mindset around that, like it's easy. I'm not saying necessarily it's easy, but for me, I know by things happen 2020 hindsight, things should improve.
Yeah.
That's not always going to be the case, obviously, because you don't know. You can be told this mightn't be the case, but
it
and
should
also
be a trajectory.
The trajectory should improve.
Yeah.
How much you want it to improve, and all that crap, and blah 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 blah.
And effort is rewarded. How much effort you put into your recovery or progress, not always rewarded.
Yeah, but it's deserved. I think that's the most important thing to remember, that it's deserved. I was wondering how long you'd take to pick up on that part.
It's there's some triggers.
I could see your brain thinking, going, hang on, what? Where you're just nodding. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it takes a while. I'm like, there's layers over the triggers, and then you hit. I'm like, oh no, that's no.
And the other thing I want to sort of dig into, which I think is across the board of anything, but it's even more particularly so, I imagine, for you. But obviously, people with sometimes mostly good intentions, but not always, that unsolicited advice of, if you just did this, and how disruptive that can be, and yet how do you show support for someone going through something?
What does someone like me want to hear? Do you mean like what would actually?
And that could obviously, as you know, like someone saying one thing one day and the same thing the very next week by a different person or in a different tone or a different, you want to punch their head in. Like, that sort of thing is very legitimate. So it's, what happens on your good days, what happens on your bad days, how do you cope with advice? How do you cope with the good pain, the bad pain? How do you not burn through things? How do you deal with choice? Like for me, as I said to you, some of the easiest time is when you don't think you have choice in recovery, where you just got to do it. Like, and that's the only way that's going to happen. Whereas when you get to a certain level that's livable, you go, well, now it's a choice as to whether you want to, willing, wanting to improve, how much time, how much effort, all that crap.
What you accept, what you don't.
Yeah, and that difference between, I talk with my clients a lot in a slightly different context, but in terms of resilience and courage, and like sometimes you burn through your resilience by keeping on showing up, where sometimes you shouldn't show up and you should actually show the courage. Sorry, you're using up all your courage by showing up all the time in your resilience. So then you don't have a courage moment of, if I really make this effort now, it's going to be worthwhile. But you've used up it all then by that time by using it all up in resilience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it totally makes sense. I think I have a totally different version of courage than I would have even a year ago.
Yeah.
Definitely 2 years ago, but even a year ago. So courage used to feel like so say, you're going to visit a friend who's going through a hard time, and that would be me totally being there for that friend, even if you're feeling really crappy and awful, no matter what you're feeling, kind of suppress it down, just be in that space with that person, sort of almost lose your sense of self with that person, be there for them. Now, my idea of courage is more being vulnerable enough to show the person you're also.
Oh, yeah. So
being
totally
vulnerable enough to be like, no, I'm not well, like I'm not good, or I'm, this is a bad day, and having the courage to actually show that instead of always performing healthy, thinking that's how you show courage, or that's how you show strength.
And that's it. I think that's it. That's a really good point, because that's showed me also that line of vulnerability and leadership. That edge is very similar. That you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to be the most amazing person in the room and to still be a good leader. And I think the other thing, which I guess we would have had, is that you don't, in that situation that you're talking about, this is my thoughts on it, that you were expecting sympathy for yourself, like you were somehow dragging away from their story, whereas that's not at all. But that was sort of the impression. You might have had it slightly different, but that, to me, you can't show them weakness because you don't want either to take their story away or to feel any, where, I don't know if you get this a little bit, but where, like some people will say to me, they've had it, like any form of accident. Like, let's be honest, an accident is an accident, or whatever. That is what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then they'll be talking about it, and then they'll say, "Oh, but it's nothing compared to you."
Yeah.
That doesn't, like.
Yeah.
To you, that's everything. Like, don't compare it to me at all. Like,
no, there's no reason to compare. It doesn't.
I don't feel that thought at all. Like, whether you broke a toe or did this or poked yourself in the eye, but all those things have meaning and different times where you can. I don't
compare it to. Yeah. I'll qualify that, because in my moments where I'm myself, not in any way do I compare. Like, it's not on you don't have to prove it's on a scale of suffering for me to, reach out to you. But on the bad days, sometimes you will have that thought that's like, oh, come on now. But that's only on the bad days when you've lost you don't have the energy.
Yeah, you've lost your own bearings a little bit.
Yeah. On the bad days, like, you lose a bit of grace for others. Hopefully I still have to be pretty bad.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I know what you
hopefully
mean.
I still has to be really bad, not just day, but day on end, on days and days on end, before I kind of have lost that capacity. But yes, in a normal, there's no point in comparing,
Yeah, I know. That's actually a really good point. Like, grace is a funny word like that, because it's something I would never have thought of it as grace, but I know what that
yeah.
means. Like, I had a picture straight away of a situation that I was in. I certainly was not graceful. And I think it also still came, for me in that instance, it came from a place where I was still in that. It didn't matter what was the situation, you have to show up and do. Like, there was no, but that was in like times in my life, no self-care. Like, and your self-care was,
Yeah.
you were burning yourself to the ground
Yeah.
because you had no self-care. And so then your grace was a bit shoddy to be the least. And so when someone was and I mean, I'm more a complainer, not a person that was tolerating and trying to like, so they were, in my mind, in that situation, they were using the situation to help out as an avoidance to something else. Like, so whereas in that similar situation, I know how much I'd have to dig deep and show up. And I think that my tolerance in that situation, whereas I didn't have the skills to dig into what they're actually avoiding, all I could see was they were using it as a, you know what I mean? Like, so it was a superficial thing. That made me a bad person.
That's always it. It's always when you're doing it the least, if you're not showing up for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I was burning myself very badly. So then your tolerance for other people's situation was certainly much poorer. And that's, I think we all go through those different stages in life. One of the very hardest things is to be kind to yourself, like to be.
It's ridiculous.
It's a hard, because part of it is you have to be a warrior in certain situations, and yet you have to know when the warrior needs to take some armor off and have just a little sit down, a cup of tea, basically.
We were not raised with it. We don't live in a society that reinforces or rewards it. We, as a society, and both, into family, were rewarded for pushing, to your limit, like, and beyond. Like,
and it was in an environment where that had to be, like, there was there were times where that shouldn't have been the case, but there were other times where that was an absolute necessity. And I still find that own, which I don't think you can ever get right, because everything's a balance between that, like that warrior resilience of you must, and the whole, be kind. And you can, it's easy to wallow sometimes in certain situations. But I guess the biggest thing now is I recognize them much better and easier. And I recognize the situations that it's led to, and also whether it is truly required. Like, because there are certain situations, yes, this is required. It is a necessity. And other times where you're going, am I just repeating an old habit? Or equally, am I using either end of that spectrum to avoid something else completely? I'm hiding behind, and rest can be the same. I know myself, and this is a bit different for you, I imagine, but I know for rest, if once I get to a certain level of rest, it then turns into apathy, which turns into avoidance, which turns into, am I not, that's that courage, like, am I not being courageous to, like, I might have worn myself down, but did I partly wear myself down to avoid something?
Yes.
Like, so just by working hard, I thought, rather than doing something and in an initiative way, in a different way,
sitting in what you needed to sit in.
What I feel comfortable in, rather than the other way around. And I think that's a
I think the word warrior, I've kind of you know, because there's always, with most illnesses, there's always, you know, like where they'll say like ME warrior, or you know, they'll put warrior at the end of a diagnosis as if that's, you know, like you fight it, you strong, you're strong, you fight it, you know, we're a cancer warrior, we're a, you know, whatever it is. I've sort of really tried to turn it around in my head to be, it's the idea of a gentle warrior. So it's
which looks like what?
Passive, gentle warrior. So resting is fighting.
Okay. Yeah, like, that's a great one, actually.
Rather than seeing resting as this capitulation.
Little gem.
But that's what I have to say to myself. It's like,
no, totally agree.
Is fighting it. Like, because that is counterintuitive. It feels wrong, or not anymore, but it used to feel so wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like gentle warrior, like lay down your weapons.
Oh, I love that. Gentle.
Because that's still, you're still a warrior. You're still, but you fight it, you know, like some of the martial arts, you know, are about the passivity and finding ways not to fight against.
Yeah, that's very true. Like you're actually choosing, which is, I think, that courage, resilience statement I said at the beginning is similar to that. Like you're using courage at a certain point and resilience at a certain point, and that's very similar. That rest, that's actually really, I hadn't thought of it that way. But often, like I certainly, you know, at the lowest points, I never think of it in any way warrior mode, even though that's when, on reflection, other people would reflect on it as you're in warrior mode. But to me, that's just the slog, no choice, show up, but then equally.
Oh, see, I challenge you.
Equally fall into rest as well.
See, I've seen you, what I perceive as warrior mode, because you're not giving up. You do have it. You can give up. Like, you just don't see it as a choice. But for me, that's just not in your DNA. But like, giving up is a thing.
I never said I had a high IQ. The data clearly says, buddy, just walk away. Just step away from it.
And just not. not. So no, I feel like, obviously we haven't spent a lot of face-to-face time together, but I feel like I've seen you in what I would call warrior mode, because you just you don't seem to entertain. I mean, I mean, I know there's moments, obviously, it's temporary moments, but for any length of time, you don't seem to maintain of like, you know what, I'm just nah. Just nope. I'm not going.
Oh, really?
I don't see it. Where's
no? See, yeah, I often feel myself. Well,
it feels very temporary. It looks very temporary.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like, in terms of, I don't wallow for very long, but I can avoid for a long time. I can do that quite successfully.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
I'd sort of wrap those sort of two things a little bit together. But yeah, I know what you mean. I relate also to, and I guess this is possibly, like, I know there's a lot of studies through the insurance industry because, and they were comparing people that self-employed to people who are employees, at speeds they go back to work. And obviously self-employed person, I think, is 18 times faster to go back to work. Like, the difference is static. Like, it's something like
in your house again.
It's ages since I saw this. It's something, I'm going to throw a number out there, but it's something like 4 days as compared to 28 or something like that for similar type injury. Like, there's a really big distinct gap of, which is that whole thing of self-reliance, I guess. And not that if you don't, no one will, but if you don't, there will be nothing not far down the track. Like, there's no safety net, or not. I mean, we have, because family have been wonderful in that sense, but in terms of a safety net, and Australia still does have safety nets, but then you've got to fill out 400,000 forms. But you know what I mean? Like, you do.
Yeah, you still got to qualify for them. You can't.
You do still feel like if you don't, then no one else can, will, do in that way. So I guess that whole self-reliance, as you said at the beginning, is sort of that a really good strength, but then that self-reliance in that situation would have been your struggle with the resting warrior or gentle warrior. Like that goes hard against that mentality. And so to swing it off just warrior to take it trickling towards gentle, totally understand how. I had man flu, which was a very bad case, and
I can hear it. I see you. It's okay.
but I had 3 days off, and that's like I still don't feel great, but 3 days off, and 2 of those days I moaned on the couch like a big lemon. But I felt, but I would have, and funnily enough, I was talking before, where I remember, and this kind of makes it sound terrible, where my tonsils and throat was so sore, like I had literally blood coming down, and I was
still.
This is so I literally couldn't talk in the morning. Like I was away doing a clinic, and I couldn't talk in the morning. And the only way I could get my voice to work was I'd have a lemon tea, honey tea.
Yeah.
But then I would gargle alcohol. I wouldn't drink the alcohol. I'd gargle it to numb my throat. And I'd do that 2 or 3 times. And then you're just shoving throat lozenges down, those antiseptic ones.
Yeah.
And then by about 10 minutes into the first lesson, my throat had just gone numb enough I could talk. And then I'd talk. Once I was talking, like it was sore, but then by the end of the day, I could hardly swallow again. Like I could, take
it was like blast to swallow.
Yes, that sort of thing. Yeah, totally.
But did it?
And I think that's also why, my tonsils don't like me anymore.
Me neither. Ripped out.
But I actually, I'd sort of forgot. I haven't done that often, but I've done that a couple times when you've just got to do the stuff.
But did you even consider? When you woke up, did you even consider going, I've got to cancel? Did the thought
of not being on a sunny beach and not doing what I had to do that day,
actually cancelling, did you even entertain actually walking or calling someone and saying, I've got to cancel?
The thought was there, but the fear of letting either people down or letting the situation down was far outweighed that choice. Yes, so that in that way it was gone.
What's in our best interest is
so and also I think part of that comes from I was obviously away at the time as well, and so as you probably know, when you're on the road, what are you going to do? You're just going to rest in a bed, it's not your home bed. It's not restful in that way. And you're going to feel like an obligation to other people. So and then your self-worth of these people have made an effort to come to you to do this, whatever this thing is.
How can I let them down?
Yeah, exactly. So you just do whatever you have to do to show up and go out there and which is I've always found important, for me personally, is that individual person. That's their time with you. So you can't be, and obviously I must have been, for a couple of them, because I was pretty run down. I wasn't not feeling well. I wouldn't have been, but I certainly tried my absolute best to be
present
and to be as because certainly on one of the days in particular, I remember a couple of days. One was very, very windy, and so they were, that they're coming to you to be uplifted, not the other way around. So you had to be the one that was, glad to hear, blah blah blah. Whereas internally you go, and another time where it was very cold and wet and raining and stuff. So you certainly had to be, thank God you made it. Glad we're here. Let's get going. that.
Yeah.
So, that was actually, I guess that's, in some ways that's good, but it takes you further and further away from the gentle warrior.
Yeah. I think that's how I got through my entire 30s, was literally that. Like, just, you get sicker and sicker. You push and push and push. You're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. But I thought the thing to do was building crash days. So you push, working as much as you can, or people coming to your house to visit, working and having a life. It's like, no, I'm going to manage this by building in crash days where I will be hit the wall. I can't do anything, throat, body's all kaplooey.
Yeah.
But that's how I'll manage it. I'll just build in crash days, and then I'll get up and go again. And then I'll only do that, and I know I'll have to have in 3 days crash day after I do this big thing, or 2 days after that one, or maybe only 1 day after that one. But that was not listening. It was not listening
totally related to that.
Yeah, and making it worse.
Because for me, my back would just absolutely just give up the ghost, and that's where for me, I couldn't work out the difference between good pain and bad pain.
Yeah.
Like, it was all just pain. Like, so I had in those days, I had no source of recovery to make it better. All I had was be still and unconscious as you could be until that wave of pain, which usually took 24 to 40 or 72 hours maybe to really dissipate. But the other thing, which I've actually, it's really good that crash day, because I think of them now as which a friend was talking about with when he's on shift work. They call them pajama days.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I realized that when it's the moment he said that, I suddenly realized that's how I've governed my life sometimes. Like, I'm certainly lot better at giving myself days off now.
Yeah.
But I can still fall into the trap where by the time I've reached that, I'm only pajama day, where you just, like in a zombie, you want to do stuff, and that's where you've got to reassess that if you've left yourself that far, you've not left yourself any room for joy or recharge. Like, all you've done is go from 0.1% of battery to 10% of battery, but it's still flashing red.
Yeah,
basically. And usually, for me personally, then you if it was flashing 10, like if you got back up to 10, well, it's time to get back out there. Whereas now, doesn't mean that I don't make the mistake still, but I understand a lot better that if I've had a couple of pajama days in a row when I've got my time off, then I haven't organized. And that still comes, I guess, for self-employed people in particular, where sometimes this harvest, where you just got to harvest and harvest and harvest, and you don't have a choice. And I know there's certain periods in my calendar that I just have to grin and bear it and do it, and hope, like this last time where my wonderful daughter made me sick, and then I'd also had some gastro before that, which compounded the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like, if you took those two things out, I would have just been tired. Like, I'd actually worked out reasonably well. I would have just been tired, not exhausted. Whereas having obviously those two health things back on back, that just tipped it over the edge. So then I went into just a series of zombie days. So then it's trying to get, as then having, because at what point I can't just drop my calendar. I have to look 3 months in advance and go, well, I need to reassess there. But I am a little bit more strict with that of, it's easy. You've got a gap. Oh, I could use that gap. I could do that thing.
Yeah. Someone rings and you go, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I do have that gap. Why do I have that gap? That's a bit silly having that gap.
Happen to have.
But I now also, the other way around this, which is my, because you would have the same thing, that default setting of, if there's a gap, use it, because you can't just give it to yourself. And so I try, I still give myself gaps, but I also make sure I've tried to, with some of them, not all of them, because some of them are supposed to be rest or doing other things at other time. But the other thing is you've actually made plans to do something with either other people or a course or whatever. So then that gives you much more incentive not to give up that gap. And I think that for me, that was. Otherwise, I'd put these gaps in, and they'd be I'd burn through. I'd burn through them.
Permission to have those as whatever they need to be at the time, which doesn't, like whether that's family time, whether that's rest time, whether that's joy time, like permission not to push yourself to the absolute limits for others and for money as well, I suppose. But there's a really good with long COVID, like the slogan they're trying to get out for anyone who's experiencing long COVID is stop, rest, pace.
Stop, rest, pace. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's basically, like, for you, it'd be, when you've done 2 clinics, it's like, stop, that's it now. You can't back to back put in a 3rd clinic. Absolutely rest. Like, do not, it's just rest. But then once you're feeling better, pace. Don't just, I was always stop, rest, go. That was always my thing.
Same.
Always stop, rest, go. That's how I got to this level of severity where you don't have that choice anymore. There is no go. Like, there's no go. It's just not there. Or it's there for like 2 hours and then that's it. That's all you got. You've got an energy envelope is literally probably 2 hours or maybe 3 on a good day.
Cranking. She's cranking.
Really. But yeah, so that's helped me, like, because I knew I was always, you rest and then you go, like, obviously. Like, obviously. Go. But the other one is also acceptance of, which, I think to others it sounds defeatist or it sounds like you've lost your positivity, but saying, I'm never actually well.
Yeah.
Gives you permission to not see yourself as kind of doing things in the days that aren't so bad. It's like, even on those good days, I still have a million symptoms. I try to box them up and not think about them.
Yep.
You're not actually well.
Yep.
So just kind of, just accept that, sit in that, and stop doing your life as if you're a little bit sick this day, but then you're okay. It's like, no, you're actually always on a continuum of feeling like you're coming, that feeling of when you're about to get the flu.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're not so great, but you can push through.
Yeah.
That's a good day. And that the more I do, the more it progresses to that middle of the flu where you're hitting the wall. Everything's wrong with you. Like your whole body's protesting against you.
Yeah, see, I think you've actually just got man flu. I think you actually probably.
What I wish. That's exactly what that's because we were raised. That's kind of what I thought it was. You're like, oh, come on. The second you feel good, your brain does a trick of going, I wasn't that bad yesterday. Like,
yes. Oh, no, yeah.
Why was I lying around yesterday? I feel fine today. Well, not fine. I'm never fine, but
Yeah.
And I was like, so your brain plays a trick. Like, why was I just,
So what's been the best advice you've got like that? Or I know for that sometimes is a traveling journey as well. Like, or someone said something to you and you go, oh, shit, I haven't thought of it like that. But that makes, there's a few things I've found that I've hedged around, but suddenly someone says a phrase, you go, oh shit, like that, of course.
I think it's more a continuum of being joining groups online where it's finding your community. So it's just about and realizing everyone else is struggling with that normalizing the struggle. Coming back to struggle, normalizing the struggle, normalizing the tricks your brain plays on you that you're so harsh on yourself. Like this idea of just constantly, I can't judge myself against someone who doesn't have an energy limiting illness. I have to accept it, and I have to, by others sharing, what they've gone through and this silly and ridiculous things we do to ourselves, because we're looking for either external validation or mostly external or money, like one or the other. It's just it allows you to look in the mirror and go, I've done all those things. That's how I got to here. So yeah, it was just finding people. It's probably that stop, rest, pace very much helps. Just because
Is that because that was an external validation? Rather, so if you'd sort of come to something, and it sounds like you have been coming to something close to it, but because it was, can I justify that to myself? Whereas if someone else gives you that validation for it, that
I think
allows a bit more.
I think what probably the crossover point from constant pushing to prove myself or wanting external validation was I actually saw it was a symposium where they got a whole heap of researchers on ME together, MECFS together, and they just were presenting their research topics. None of them were quite completed, but they were just presenting what they were researching. So it was medical researchers, doctors. Obviously, you can't follow all of it because it's presenting it as their clinical trial. But and they're outlining all the different parts of your body that things are going wrong on a cellular level. And unfortunately, I needed that. I needed to see these researchers explaining to me all the things that are wrong on a cellular level, multi-system dysfunction. Unfortunately, it took that to get through my head, like, this is what I have. This is why I've got to start pacing.
When was that symposium?
So it was like the start of COVID. So it must have been right before COVID. Maybe, it must have been before COVID because obviously there wasn't COVID restrictions. So maybe 2019. So I'd been getting worse in my 30s. I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, but still feeling like it's okay. I just build in these crash days and I'm having to do more crash days.
I can do a workaround.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. Everyone has something, but seeing that, and my health had taken a turn because I'd tried to ramp up doing some more walking and swimming.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually,
I'll get out in front of this.
I'd had a few good months where I felt not too bad, so I pushed it.
Yep.
I was crashing, and then seeing that, I was like, it was the recognition I needed because most GPs don't recognize it. Haven't researched it. Won't even look up. Like
it's too far out of their field.
It's a 7-minute model of, it's a 7-minute model. So you're in and out of door. You can't discuss a complex chronic illness.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It took that to actually really finally get through all the conditioning I'd had. All the conditioning.
So you that sounds like you actually, instead of going, seeing all that and going, well, this is the end of the world, you saw it and saw, this makes me want to manage myself better, or give myself permission to manage myself better.
Yeah, unfortunately, as loath as I am to admit it, it was permission. And I don't like that.
Why that word? Why loathing permission?
Because I thought I was relatively self-aware. I thought I was relatively okay. I wasn't great at self-care, but I was okay. I thought I was, relatively okay. But, I was kind of trying to be kind to myself. Is it tempting?
So when you say kind, so what's the difference between pre-2019 to 2020 kind to yourself?
Knowing that I couldn't, so instead of on a good day saying, oh, I feel good, I'm going to go for a walk, and I'll walk as far as I can till I get.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the next day, if I still feel fine, I'll walk. But that graded exercise. Unfortunately, a lot of people were treated with ME. It's been proven to be catastrophic, but I was doing that to myself.
Yep.
So graded exercise, and then realizing that is the absolute worst thing I could be doing.
Yeah.
Absolute worst thing I can be doing, and to give myself permission to not compare myself to others who I felt like I should be able. My body has always been a relative level of fitness, even when I was really sick.
Yep.
But my 30s, that just declined.
That changed completely.
Yeah. I identified within my identity as like a fit person.
Yeah, totally.
We're sporty. We were raised to be sporty. Not so much healthy is not, because
I know what you mean.
Definitely sporty, definitely fit, Be able to go for a hike, or and loved going outdoors. Obviously, that was all part of my identity, and then to lose that, you lose your sense of self.
Yeah, totally.
Person who's
it's funny your sense of who you are is wrapped up into so many different things.
Yeah, and being a worker and earning money and all those things that I liked validation for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't base my self-esteem on any of those things that were decimating my health.
Yeah.
But then where do you find your self-esteem? Where do you find your sense of self if you can't do any of those things, either by choice or because you've gone past your health level, baseline level?
So how long did that take to write The Wobbly Boat?
Still. A little bit shaky.
What's the time today?
Talking about, does it write? What do you mean? What? Are you telling me it's supposed to be steady? No, it's a you know what it's like. It's the days you've got resources to feel okay with things, and there's days you don't have the resources to feel okay with your lot in life or your circumstance or your trajectory.
I think for most people in different situations, it takes between 3 and 5 years this is if they're actively doing comfortable with a different identity to the one they've forged in their mind from a younger age.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there's still not moments of, I can't believe that's not me still for whatever reason. But I think it takes, if you look at athletes and stuff, coming off that self-discipline and that's who they are and they're no longer an athlete or whatever the case is, those two situations, it takes a minimum of 3 years, unless they were already looking to cast that off for whatever reason. They're already, that's not actually, they weren't living that, someone else was living that identity for them.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yeah, and it is, that's that whole, and which is, especially in this modern age where you can compare yourself to everything and every moment of what you think they're doing,
or what you should be doing, or what you thought you'd be.
So do you find in that sense, like this is, I certainly notice it a lot, and I certainly notice a lot with others, that when you're going through whatever, either a low time or a health time, where your time is constantly stopping and everyone else's is racing forward. And I think that whole thing of media now, like, so if you were rehabbing by yourself in the French Riviera, just on a lovely sunbed,
lying in the sunshine,
you probably wouldn't be.
There's a vista.
You wouldn't be feeling, looking at friends climbing a mountain and going, "Oh, I really should be doing that." Whereas you constantly got that whole thing of missing out, as well as everyone else is zooming away. They've forgot your moment seems to be stuck in reverse, and their moment seems to be, and they always seem unimpeded by anything.
La la la, they're trolloping off. La la la. I'm getting worse at missing out, obviously, because I'm missing out more.
Yep.
I used to be able to find solace. I think that's what sustained me for a long time, is I was quite good at finding solace. So, if you just even could go outside in the sun, or just find a little grass, or, hug a tree, literally, there was very small things that I needed to ground, to solace, to not feel like I was missing out on the big things.
Yep.
But I'm not, those things I can't do that very often. Even just to get out, into the world, into the sunshine. So I'm getting worse at the missing out, because you've got to keep constantly minimizing what gives you joy. Like, it's got to keep making it smaller and smaller and smaller. I sort of haven't found the the small enough thing that doesn't cost me anything health-wise.
Oh, okay.
Still gives me that
Still
sense
gives
of,
you actually.
that sense of exhale where you just, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, life's okay. You can deal.
Yeah.
I haven't quite found the thing that's small enough not to cost yet. Haven't found it yet.
The battery
Working on
reserves.
it. And of course, I think there are obviously people who are more, a lot more severe than me who can't tolerate, sound, light, where you have to be constant. Like I have to sometimes be in a dark, quiet room, but obviously it gets to a stage where you have to always. And that I don't know. I don't know what I'd do with that. As in, because you're currently probably music and escaping through podcasts and knowledge and my curiosity can still be filled a little bit.
Yep.
Because if you've got to take away that stimuli as well, I don't know where that leaves you. But people survive. People carry on. So it's possible. Just haven't figured that out yet. But that was one thing we were, I think we're all of us, we're quite good at finding, or not even if we wouldn't call it solace, I think
I think that's where sometimes it's much easier or handier to not be an extrovert than be an introvert in the first place. Yeah, totally.
And raising it nowhere, like, does give you the ability to shut off, be happy with shutting off from the world.
Yes. No, totally. Totally. And much smaller things can then bring you a sense of that.
I think I've got to, I certainly do describe it as, that, I've got to find more things in my life now, and I'm working on it, where that sense of exhale, where you just melt into the world and you're okay. I'm hoping, because it's winter, it's a bit easy to go out to the world where it's nice and cool, so I'm going to find it. It's out there.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at, like, what is it today, the 1st? I mean, you're starting June off in an amazing way.
Starting. It's the beginning.
This is that moment.
Depends how long it takes me to recover from this conversation.
Exactly. That's that.
I'll be in bed for the rest of the afternoon, and then tomorrow maybe not so much.
When Tanya comes home, she's go, "What happened? What did he say? What did he say? Come on, tell me." I can make him pay.
Are you tired again? Actually, this is coming all the way back to, you said to say one thing. Probably the earliest thing I heard when I started connecting with people who had, I don't think I was even, I wasn't sure I had MS, but I suspected that seemed to be the only thing left that was viable, was people constantly said, not just tired. So like,
as in people
so people thinking it's like, because it used to be called chronic fatigue syndrome. Well, in Australia. So like, you're just tired. It's like, no, everyone gets tired. Everyone gets tired, and sometimes very tired. This is not about just being tired. This is a level of exhaustion. That's a level of exhaustion plus all these other symptoms. So that helped me a lot. Just people saying it's not just, because that's what you tell you. Your brain goes, I'm just tired. Everyone gets tired. Why can't I?
So is that back to that permission thing again?
Back to permission, back to self-esteem, back to external validation. But it was like, it actually, back to that, I'm never well.
Okay.
But people
I
just
don't have to prove something otherwise.
Yeah, because that's mostly what I'd hear, even from very, very well-meaning friends who, lived very busy lives, particularly with kids, obviously kids and working. Like, they'd tell, but I'm always exhausted. I'm like, think of the exhaustion in the middle of a really bad flu. Like, so all the symptoms you have when you're in the middle of a really bad flu. It's not just tired. But that helps me to explain it. But also, I think that was also it. You don't know how to explain it to others. In a way that they might understand.
That they can actually relate to that.
Because you look fine. You sound like I can keep this up for another little while and I look and sound fine. I'm not sure how long.
You've got 36 seconds. Let's wrap this up. Yeah, exactly. Like, because that's really interesting, because I know for pain, like a lot of people, especially in 90s and 2000s, a lot of people wouldn't even realize how much pain I was in. Like, because I could switch it off and my body would be just absolutely hammering. But obviously the mental toll on that as well of not showing which would mean by the end of the day you were just absolutely
you
beyond
crash. Because you're both performing healthy, but you're performing a role for others that is, the instructor or you're the main guy. It's not like you're
and so for you where
looking at
if someone just saw you now, you go, oh, she seems fine. Like, I don't she says she's a bit tired, but
or you
whatever.
get that, you look well. And it's like, that's not a compliment.
Yeah, but you might sleep for the next 5 hours. Like that's.
It's like, take a closer look at what's going on.
It's the lighting.
There's a lot going on.
No, totally. And I think, that for me was back to that warrior. Like, that was the warrior just having to stand up. Whereas you thinking of it as the gentle warrior, allowing either yourself to show you're in discomfort, show you're in this pain, and also in that way being, well, the warrior can only do X amount of hours or X this day, this week, this month, and that's all the warrior can. If the warrior wants to sustain life, and that's all the warrior can do.
Doesn't want to get worse.
It could do more, but it then starts to escalate into a series of either bad decision making, or you're going to start affecting other people around you, not just yourself.
Which is something I absolutely. I'm very much you. My preference is always to create space for others, but in that you don't often create space for yourself.
Yes. Totally.
But you also, I think those around, speaking for myself, I think a lot of us around you just accepted you as someone who can function in a high level of pain. Like, rather than us sort of saying, is there, how can we help or how can we reduce this? I think we around you, in myself included, where people, he can function in this really high level of pain, and he just carries on. So we accepted that, whereas in fact you had no, there could have been some of us around you kind of.
That's like, how do you ask for help as well as how do you receive help? I think that's a life skill that, quite frankly, very bad at. I'm still reasonably bad at. Like, and I've really got to still check myself when Claire is looking to help and actually allow her to help, and I've gotten okay with that as well. Like, which is like not only someone, but then genuinely going, she is willingly doing that, not.
And I receive it willingly.
Begrudging or I'm going to have to pay a price later on or anything like that. That's in your own personality makeup is a big thing to allow yourself to accept the accepting, and then coming, and then it doesn't have to be, well, I need to write that down in that note because I'll need to pay that back somehow, and that then plus get on with my other stuff and pay that price back. So that part of that was why you didn't sometimes receive help as well, because you thought that to pay it back is going to be too great.
Totally relate to all of that, and fluctuate between being completely still fluctuate between being okay with accepting it, being okay with accepting it, being like, why aren't you helping me?
Yes, exactly.
It's a whole spectrum.
The usual thing is, by the time you actually collapse, you've pushed someone away hard enough and then they go, I didn't realize, like, what are you doing as a puddle on the floor there? Like, that's you didn't notice that I was in. Well, I didn't notice because you kept shoving me away. Like, so you were,
yeah, I'm constantly vacillating between I don't want the attention, I want you to see me, and I don't want you to see me. It's a
yes.
constant with most people. Not with this
Oh, I think most people find that a hard balancing
I think
because
probably,
you do want that validation of I can see you're hurting, but I
yeah,
don't necessarily want or misguided sympathy or
attention. I don't actually want the attention on me. I
yes,
just want you to
yeah.
go, I see you, or I see you're struggling, but I don't actually want you to then make me the focus of no, don't focus on it. But yes, I would like to be validated and seen and understood, but I don't actually need more than those words most of the time. Do you know
But
what I mean?
sometimes, like I know for like, so sometimes if you give someone that validation, and then you don't stay on it because they don't necessarily want you to stay on, dig in, oh no, poor you, blah blah blah. But after you've sometimes got to go back to it after half an hour to see if they're ready to open up more about it. Whereas, sometimes we all have that wall that we put up of self-reliance. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you for seeing me. And then, but then you go back to at least you saw. But I know for myself, I found I didn't have the vocabulary of talking about pain, feelings, anything like that. So if someone said, "Oh, what do you think?" I know there's something there, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I didn't want to I didn't want to miss talk about it because then I'd get myself. I didn't have the energy to back myself out of a corner I'd got myself into by mistake. Yep. And so then it's easy to just shut it down. Whereas if you sometimes give them that another little window, I find after about 45 minutes, an hour, or certainly 75 minutes, I find that time frame, people will just, and that mightn't open up hugely, but they open up that little.
Yeah, you've chipped away at the wall.
Yeah, they want to let a little trickle out of how much it's hurting or how much.
Yeah.
Rather, yes, I've been seen, but how much am I hurting? I think in whatever way they're hurting.
Both, walls, barriers, and like you said, even if you want it, even if you're comfortable enough and feeling safe enough to go there, it's taken me I'm nearly a certain age. Not yet. I'm nearly a certain age.
Nearly a certain age.
But I just haven't. I can have the language to talk about it with I can absolutely have the language to talk about someone else's stuff.
Yeah, totally.
No, I've had that. Like, that was never any problem. Like, never a problem at all. Never afraid of going there. Never afraid of, some people are sort of afraid if others show too much emotion. That was never a problem whatsoever. But I never had the language to say, I feel blah.
But does that go to the same sort of thing that you could advocate for someone but not advocate for yourself?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back to that. I thought I was okay at it. Like, I thought, no, I could if I had to. When I had to, it's like, oh, hang on. Hang on.
And it could be almost exactly the same process, and yet you couldn't do it for yourself. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. There's a funny glimpse into it.
It's all, like, how you sort of, it's a very big theme in, a lot of obviously fictional, particularly coming of age type stories or young adult stories where it's, this idea of growth, this idea of growing and learning about yourself. And I sort of, and it's continuous. It's something I never valued. Personal growth wasn't something I gave thought to.
Oh, God, no.
It wasn't valued. It wasn't seen as, it was more about being the same person, staying true to yourself, staying the same. And it's like, no, it's like this constant evaluating.
Did you wrap that into your identity as well? Like, you have to be the same?
I think so. I think I'm unfortunately I can be a bit chameleon-ish. So, you adapt to the people you're with.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Therefore, you don't have a concrete sense of self, or not really have a sense of self, but not a concrete display of your sense of self, because you are just adapting with the flow of either.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
that
I did. I can do the same. Yeah, very much so.
So yeah, finding your own voice that is consistent, but allows for change.
Yeah.
Allows for that personal growth of what you've learned and taking that on board and making changes. I think you and I both only coming to that in, I mean, we came to it a while ago, but
yeah.
We both came to it a while ago.
that whole thing, I think, of the rescuer, the empathetic person, but you're actually not being true to yourself. If that just that had been obviously a long journey of change for me, but I found that word of you're not being true to yourself if you're always will put everyone above.
Yeah.
A little bit like, say, you can be a chameleon, and that being a chameleon is really good because it allows you to do lots of things, but it also then bites you quite badly.
Yeah. I very much I liked that about myself, that I could, I actually did like that about myself, that you had all these people from different walks of life that you were comfortable with, and, that you could actually get along with.
Yeah.
Very
very diverse.
Totally.
Totally.
I like that, but then I'm sort of realizing there's a downside to that, obviously. That I hadn't examined.
So, like, for me, this is like when it was at its absolute worst. I would not wear my Broncos team hat.
Yeah.
For the fact of, because they were winning quite a lot at that stage, that I didn't want someone else to be offended because their team was losing. You know what I mean? That's how much
something I would do. Yeah.
And I would not deliberately. Whereas my best friend, he would wear his jumper of his team that very bloody rarely won, but he'd be as proud as punch about. Whereas I didn't want to. My team was crucifying another team, and I learned that was your team. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like, rather than being in your face.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, I'm totally. Yeah, it's not. It's more about. It's not about the winning. It's how you win. As in, if you're winning, you don't rub it in people's.
Yes.
Whatever. Yeah, it's always. Yeah, that's the thing. It's always about others' comfort levels.
And that's why, I love the Australian cricket team when they were winning, but I didn't like how they were winning. I wasn't.
Totally.
I found that
absolutely. I was ashamed of us for our attitude and our
post. Yeah, in that way. Like, play hard, yes. I was, but that, to me, that crossed. And that whole thing of we know where the line is. Yeah, that the more you know about self-regulation, that's actually quite a bad thing. So I found that quite.
No, that was so confronting. But that's it. It's always been about coming back to health, coming back to pain, and showing.
Like if you're,
it's always about, I don't want to make others uncomfortable. Like, I
totally
don't want them to be uncomfortable.
You drag yourself out of a coffin rather than
misery or my I don't show it because I don't want.
Okay, I'm fine.
So it's but there's certainly people I haven't given enough credit for. They can handle it, but most of the time, it's. If you have a couple of instances where you show it and it's not received well, then obviously it reinforces don't.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
your confirmation bias just goes off the Richter scale.
That one person is everyone.
Yes, totally. Yeah. It's interesting that comment, because how many positive comments does it take to overcome a negative? That is quite amazing in life. How it doesn't matter sometimes how high the high is. Of if that one bad comment hits a nerve that is fragile to you, everything comes crashing down. Whereas you can, other times in life, you can tolerate so many negative comments, but they're not hitting a nerve.
Yeah, and depending on what hat you've got on at the time. So if you've got your professional hat on, sometimes you can, there is just a shield anyway. You've got a bit of a shield up.
Yeah.
Whereas, without that, or you've put up you've a bit grounded yourself, so you're prepared for it. But if you haven't, it hits right in, gets behind the wall.
So what's your best practices to get present on any day that's a struggle?
That's a good question. I would have said, certainly if I'm really I kind of do. It used to be very much like visualizations of just being grounded, just grounding yourself in the, whether it's the earth or the, like a literal visualization like that.
Okay.
Sometimes I need to do the senses thing where you sort of name senses. But that's also boxing up symptoms as well. So allows you to kind of box up like what's going on.
You do it that way. Yeah. Okay.
So you're distracting yourself while also bringing yourself into the present. So, what can I hear? What can I see? What can I feel? I'd literally do it the old-fashioned way of like using your senses to do that. I don't know. I think that's probably the main ways. I think. Obviously, just even doing breath, exercise, breathing when you remember to do the like a 4-7-8 or one of those. Like as cliche as they sound, and as
oh yeah, totally. And it is one of the most effective things, and yet breath is the first thing we all drop in every situation.
Yeah,
it's quite bizarre, like in terms of sporting, in terms of anything. Yeah,
every time. If I'm really bad, I don't know if you've done the ones where you do it's not traditional, it's not like tapping or anything, although I highly recommend people trying tapping, but you do something like that with your finger or that, and you've actually associated that with, so say you visualize, like for me it would be like sitting on the ground under a tree.
Okay.
So cool breeze.
If you do that,
and then actually putting that in place as part of your visualization. So that somewhere else you can just do that, and you sort of hardwired that little breathe out moment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So is that open eye or closed eye when you're doing that?
Yeah, I know. I've got to look up which. You're supposed to do it to a very specific finger, but I need to look up which one it is again.
Oh, okay.
Some people just needs to be something you don't ordinary. So it needs to be something you don't ordinarily.
So you don't.
So if you're a person who's doing that
all the time,
even though that's a very bad thing, you should never do that anymore.
Really? Why? Oh, that's that. Yeah, I know.
No.
I don't know how okay got to be that. But
an action that you don't normally. So if you don't really very often do that, then that's
that should be your go-to thing. Okay. Yeah, I haven't tried that one. I've where you've seen a little bit, but you haven't dived into it, and you don't. Yeah, for me, it keeps.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I'd respond. I don't. Where you do the tapping, it's a biosensory thing, or whether you put tones in both ears. So it's a biosensory. I'm saying the words. It's got a proper name, and I'm not using the proper name.
Yeah.
I'm half interested in delving into that, and half a bit just.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. Different times it utterly fascinates me, and obviously with what Claire's doing with sound, it is the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that I don't know if I've got the bandwidth to do. I want to do it, but I don't have bandwidth. And I think to me, doing it at the moment is actually a procrastination of putting a few other things off.
Yeah.
Which I'd be fascinated to do, but am I using that as a Because then, of course, okay, now I've got it there. Where do I use it? Like, I mean, obviously you'd use it, but you've got to then, because it takes. I know for me, it takes a good 18 months before something that you've learned that you start to use with clients comfortably, and that sort of thing. So.
There's a beautiful. I used to do regularly, which was very good for my mental health. Was it's just a little Tai Chi, like it's a 5-minute Tai Chi, just beautiful with breath work, just really relaxing movements, and you put it like your singing bowls or something what Claire does, with that really sort of meditative or the gong or whatever, like meditative
Yeah.
music, and it was 5 minutes, and it was
Okay.
lovely. I've gotten out of the habit of it, and sometimes my body's just too sore to even consider.
Isn't it amazing though? Like 5 I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Like, and like, even I know when my brain's really bad, when I don't even have, I can talk myself out of doing 90 seconds. And yet you could be sitting down scrolling with your phone for an hour, but I don't have 90 seconds to give myself to do, whatever. I find that fascinating. Like, this sounds a little weird. One of the things I've recently done at the end of the day to slow myself down, which was sort of a little bit by mistake. The 5-blade razors, scrape. Anyway, I got really badly windburned in January. And so when I was using the razor, it just kept really irritating my face. And so I'd been looking up, those single.
Yeah.
Dead cut razors.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay.
But I dive down the rabbit hole of all these YouTube clips, and you're massaging your face and doing it, and actually doing because shaving used to be me, and then done. Like, it was, and it certainly wasn't doing my face any good at all. But
I'm young, I can take it.
Yeah, exactly. So then I got into this thing where I'd actually, instead of spraying your whole hand with whole and then shoving it and just an absolute mess, you'd deliberately do it, and then you'd massage that in, and then you'd massage it slow. Like, so first you do hot water, then you do that, and I was like, because it was the single razor, you had to be a bit slower and a bit more careful. And I actually quite enjoyed the slowness of it, and it was a really like totally that in that moment. And I actually, if I get really busy, I can't, but I quite enjoy sometimes where I just go back and I would never, ever, like, shaving has never been anything like that for me, or pretty much anything to my body. When someone says, would you like a foot massage? No way in hell. Like, so that whole thing, those little things. And I know I have I know I'm in a much better mental state if I get up and I do this 10-minute yoga thing, which I know feels better. I'll feel better for the rest of the day. But oh my God, I can procrastinate on that. And then you go, I don't have time. Like, it's crazy what you don't have time for.
Oh yeah, and you just go. Yeah, and also for me, it's finding the balance between listening, knowing the times when you've got to listen to your body and do nothing, like literal nothing, and when you've got to just stretch somewhat. Technically, I'm supposed to wear my my watch, and when your heart rate goes over a certain is to stop. So when my heart rate goes over 100, which you can do just by standing up. So if it's a day when my heart rate goes over 100 just by standing, you can't do any.
Okay.
You can't do it. Like, you can't do anything else.
So that's probably a really good thing. So to wrap up on, where, like, and this has been a definite big thing for me, of when someone says, "Oh, just listen to your body," but unless you've trained your mind to understand and the data around listening to your body, you can so easily, you're either resting too much and not doing any stretches, which then you're becoming, blah blah blah. I don't need to explain that to you, but how for you does that work? Where listen to your body?
Oh, it's a constant. It's a constant. I say the newest. Well, I suppose it's been around a few years now, but one of the ways they tell you to pace now is by using a heart rate monitor of some kind.
Okay.
You can actually stay within your envelope, your energy envelope.
Oh, okay.
So treat everything as an energy envelope. The second you go, for me, you work it out numbers wise. My threshold is, I think it's 100. It's actually supposed to be 94, but I've set it at 100. So technically it's 94.
No one tells me what to do.
I couldn't set mine for 94, so it's 100. And as soon as you reach that, no matter what, like if you've half done the dishwasher, stop. If you've halfway through a yoga, a couple of stretches, stop. Because the second you go over that is when you're causing more damage to your body.
And so then how long is it I have, like, when that happens, is it a 5-10 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours,
No,
or is it
well,
go down to a certain?
depending on your baseline. So my baseline's very low right now, obviously. So
Yep.
that might mean I can tell usually if mine starts to go off while I'm just preparing breakfast, it means that day I've got to do very, very, very. It's not going to come back for that day.
Okay.
If I lie
I
down for 5 hours, it's
so
not.
it slightly depends when it goes off during the day as well.
Yeah. So
if it's early in the day.
Yeah. If I've done a fair bit before it goes off, then I know I could just sit down I can just rest for like 3 hours, and I might have another envelope later. If it goes off the second I start doing something, that day's gone. Like,
okay.
Unless I want to continue to do damage and crash for days, which is a choice.
So so that's your choice day. If you go, this is a day I have to anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there are things you have to do that you can't listen to your body. There are days when you just don't want to, but unfortunately, it becomes the worse your baseline is, the easier it is, because you are just
you're going to hit it all the time.
You're so, you can tell how unwell you are. It's not just like it's not it's very evident. So unfortunately, the worse you get, the worse your baseline is, the easier it is to pace.
Yeah. No,
totally. You're trying to tell people constantly is if you pace now, your baseline won't get this bad.
Yeah.
You'll be able to maintain energy envelopes every day.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. Really interesting. Because that's sometimes that hard thing of when to listen to your body and when your actual body's lying to you a little bit about different things.
Yeah. Again, you sort of think, oh no, I'm pretty good at it. Pretty self-aware. Of course I listen to my body. I think earlier from like 20s, 30s, it was more, for me, it was more about the day. You tell the difference between sort of either procrastination or a bit of feeling down, a bit of depression. Depression will always tell you don't care whether you're not doing anything. Depression will tell you don't care, stay in bed, doesn't matter what you're missing out on.
Yeah.
Like, don't listen to that voice. But you listen to the voice that's like, I'm too tired. I really want to go, but I'm too tired. I really want to do this thing, go for this hike, but I'm just so tired. Listen to that voice. Whereas if it's one that isn't
I don't care.
The voice that's not helpful is one that says, who cares if you go or not? What's it matter?
Yeah.
You may as well just stay in bed. That voice isn't helpful.
Yeah.
But the voice that really wants to but can't, it's the helpful one.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a really interesting way of looking. Yeah, that's really good.
That worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but that's what.
No, I think that's sometimes it can be subtly different to that, or
variation upon upon a theme of your helpful voice and not helpful at all voice.
All good. Thank you so much for doing this. I shall have to. You go now and rest, because I know just being in my presence would have probably had you at around 95, 96 most of the time. So that's
it's just stimulating conversation. It's always. I don't have to talk to anyone until Danny comes on.
Excellent. All right, I'll wrap this up. See how the recording goes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing it.
That's okay. It's what I'm here for.